Fungus theory of conscious growth. It is a theoretical idea that the entire Earth is basically like a Petri dish that's growing consciousness. If man is successful at leaving Earth, going way out past the solar system, past Pluto, and looks back and watches the sun engulf the Earth, then literally that human being watching that happen would be the spore of the fungus that just burnt up. And that is the system we're forced to produce that act. There's one solid real reason why we're doing any of this is because the end of the Earth is on the calendar. It's the ultimate goal and the ultimate challenge for all of us engineers.
Welcome to the Techcast. We'll bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Mark L. Christensen, a storyteller, filmmaker, and the creator of the provocative Fungus Theory of conscious growth. This radical theory proposes that humanity is not evolution's endpoint, but rather Earth's spore of consciousness, designed to spread life and awareness beyond our planet. Blending cosmology, biology, and visionary philosophy, Mark reimagines our origins, purpose, and cosmic future in a way that challenges conventional thinking and sparks profound curiosity. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to talk about this as much as I can. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Tell us about your work on the fungus theory of conscious growth. So, what's it about?
Fungus theory of conscious growth. It is a theoretical idea that the entire Earth is basically like a Petri dish that's growing consciousness. So the way to best describe consciousness is a static state rather than so it's a static state. So you're either unconscious or you're conscious, right? But what's really happening is it's a growth process. It's a product that the Earth is making. So animals and fish and insects are less conscious as we are because they are unable to grow as conscious as we are. So just trying to get down the foundation of what's going on Earth. Um, and it's taken all of the evolution to make a mankind with the brain size capable of obtaining this amount of growth of consciousness that we have today. And it's going to grow even further than it is today. And it does this with a fungus. So that the theoretical fungus is not the fungus we know today, like toenail fungus or fungus on the ground or moss or anything like that. But um, that also evolved from 2 billion years ago. But there was an original fungus, an ancient original fungus, and that's all there was bacteria that made that fungus. And that fungus was both plant and animal together. So it evolved until the planet was ready for the split of these two things, and plant life went off onto land, animal life went off into the ocean. So anything that grew from that original fungus is what I consider still the fungus. So when you take a look at all plants and animals and even bacteria and viruses today, it's all still manufactured from that original single fungus 2 billion years ago. And there is carbon dating that proves this, and I have all these facts in the book. You never want to say the word proof, but in my book, I've done enough research to really show the pattern of growth from biology uh, to show that lineage that we're all, everything together today is still that original same fungus producing something. And what that something is conscious growth through an animal capable of containing that much conscious growth, and that's the human being. That's how we got here. But where we're going is even more interesting. Uh, every 60 seconds in the universe, a star explodes. And that's only the stars that we can see. So I would say every second there is a star exploding in the universe. Uh, and what that means is that our sun is a star as well, and that will explode one day. Um, and there was the birth of our own sun, and and now there's the planned death of our own sun. So what does that mean? It's a bookended, right? the biology within the beginning and the end of our own sun has bookends. So this is actually literally telling you what it's all about. It's about growing a fungus on that rock, and hopefully before that rock ends from the explosion of its sun, something is capable of developing technologies enough to leave. And it is that simple. And so we call our sun and our planets the solar system, and anything within those two bookends, the beginning and the end, is systematically related to that solar system. So everything is a system. And it sounds cold, but it isn't. It's just regulated for progress and the progress of stimulating and growing consciousness further and further and further. So, in other words, if the earth never ended, right? Are you hanging in there with some of this? A little bit, I hope so. So, if the earth never ended, uh, we would never build the technologies to save humanity from the end of Earth. See, we would just live here forever. So that's forcing us. It's an enforcement to try to survive what's inevitable, and that's the end of our Earth. And uh, it's kind of a sad story, but even our own lives end personally. So it's easy to accept the fact that all lives will end, and that there's a purpose behind this, a very bizarre enforced purpose to strive to survive, which we do every day anyway. You know, with medicine today, we are striving to survive as long as we can, so we can be around our loved ones or keep our loved ones around as long as we can. That is the same nervous system that is working today to eventually save humanity from its total annihilation, and and that is on the calendar. So, what does that mean to us? You know, my book helps try to explain through facts, evidence, and historical events what this means. And I think it's the most collective idea that I've been able to find out there available. Science usually goes really deep into certain sections, you know, like cosmology, biology. And once you go deep, you're in those departments deep, and it's hard to see the big picture. And that's the idea is that you can zoom out, you know, and see the solar system, and then zoom out and see the galaxy, and even farther zoom out and look at the universe and see that through the expansion of matter and the growth of fungus, we're generating conscious growth. And that's a big explanation, but that's the nutshell right there.
Wow, that's quite an interesting one, Mark. So tell us, your fungus theory is a radical rethinking of our origins. So, in simple terms, how would you explain the core idea that humanity is the spore of the Earth's consciousness to someone hearing this for the first time?
Yeah. I mean, that was a big explanation, but I'll simplify it. So the earth was created with no people or animals on it at one time, right? You understand that? Yeah. And then because of the sun, it will one day die, right? All of what I just explained
Yep.
will die, right?
Yeah, I
Just
get that from what you just said.
so what is that for? You know, the answer is that something on that planet escape, and I call this technical evacuation standards. So what we're doing right now as a humanity is working at technology, and unknowingly to us, we're forced to work at technologies. But when we become
Mm,
cognitive of the fact that it's all about the end of Earth one day, and that's not too far away. Uh, or let me answer your question specifically. So if man is successful at leaving Earth, going way out past the solar system, past Pluto, and looks back and watches the sun engulf the Earth, then literally that human being watching that happen would be the spore of the fungus that just burnt up from the sun. And that is the system. That's the system we're designed and enforced to produce that act. In one way or another, that has to happen. And you can feel it in your own nervous system when you watch cultures, city, and sciences grow and technology grow at the rapid rate that it's doing. It's out of our control because the agenda is to eventually evacuate before burn day. And the only way you can do that is technologically, and that's why I've termed it technical evacuation standards. We have to meet that by a certain time period. And to give you a time period perspective, 250 million years ago was the beginning of the dinosaurs, right? If you didn't know, that's how long ago it was. Uh, and the end of the dinosaurs was 65 million years ago. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the oceans in the future are expected to start evaporating in 250 million years from now. So if
Oh,
the
wow.
equators, yeah, so if the equator is starting to boil water in 250 million years, that we're right in the middle of those two things, when the dinosaurs began and when the water starts to boil. And
Wow, that's
and this is
interesting.
it, it's scheduled science. It's not 5 billion years from now when the sun blows up. It's only 250 million. Who knows exactly what, but right around then you can imagine, is our earth inhabitable with the equator boiling water? Who knows? Maybe on the polar caps where there's no more ice, but maybe humanity is migrated to the only surviving areas of the earth, and this goes on for millions of years. This is not an overnight thing. We slowly adapt every day to our climate and environments, and we have been, and we always will be. And the nature of this isn't going to be unfair to us. We're enforced to develop these technologies to survive the end of Earth automatically, and will evolve each day as one new encounter comes one after another. And we're not done with mass extinctions. There's been five major ones in the past, and think about it. Are we done with those? It's all clean slate from here on out. There's no more mass extinctions. There's no more great huge volcanoes. There's no more uh, pulsar frequencies that are going to destroy one side of the earth and there's no sun flares from our own sun. How about a meteorite? Are we all clean slate? We're good, right? We're done. I would say not.
Not sure we can
Something's going to
conclude
happen.
that.
Yeah, something's going to happen, and that also is a stressor to build the technologies to be able to survive that. And I think as a large fungus, the earth being a large fungus, it knows this. It's a machine making humanity the capable animal of surviving all of this. It's like a plant, and it's funny that we use the word planet. So I like to look at it like it's a planetation to grow this humanity, and it's a fascinating concept. I don't think there's a really a more unique, wonderful concept to have. I mean, just living on Earth until you die is not a good outcome. You want to be able to get out of here. So that is how we end up being a spore. So there's two ways we're a spore. We came from an original fungus, all of it. That makes us fungus. And that the fact that we're going to survive the end of this earth and leave as a spore, and and then take our knowledge out to other planets, or probably what other aliens are actually doing. And if there are aliens, that would be evidence that they are survivors of their dead and gone planet.
Wow, that's indeed fascinating, Mark. So, you mentioned that technology may be a fungal imperative for humanity's success. So, what do you mean by that, and how does technology fit into this biological framework?
Yeah, you can almost look at technology as a fungal developed element. Uh, if you look at mankind, Homo sapien today, we have the hands to manipulate technically. That's what a thumb is for. Really, it's the thumb. And if you look at a monkey or an ape today, their thumb is more like grabbing for branches or large objects, and they can't work technically. But it was the birth of the thumb, and as we evolved, our thumbs became more, able to, thread and needle things. That's what technical really means. So we evolved to become this technical animal, and because of that, anything we build technologically is like a fungal abscess. kind of a byproduct, but conceptually, in the end, if mankind wants to survive what is scheduled, the end of Earth, it has to do two things. It has to build itself its own biosphere to replace the one that's going to be destroyed, which obviously is a spaceship. Yes, there's concepts about going to another planet, but we can't rely on that. We can rely on building our own spaceship because we even have one today. That's how we know. So the technology is also replacing our biosphere with a technological biosphere. And then also to adapt and live in that biosphere for basically eternity. This is a big concept. But just take it for face value right now that in that technology, if mankind wants to survive in it, he also has to biologically adapt himself to those conditions, which is going to make us quite a different looking and functioning animal in order to do that. So you can just see what's has to happen here. You can see kind of the the timeline of technological events that need to occur in order for that concept to be capable.
All right. So, for our audience of engineers and builders, how does this theory change how we should think about the purpose of the technology that we are creating?
Yeah. Well, all of us that work at technology and in the sciences, we think that what we're actually working for is for like today and tomorrow. What can we achieve? And that is the goal, because you can only build technologies in its layered. So you can't have a microwave oven without making electricity first. So all technologies are literally built layer and layer and layer strictly on one another. So most of us scientists and engineers are building for today and tomorrow, but they don't really understand why and why this is an enforced process. So my my work hopefully will explain something absolute about their contributions to the advancement of technology, medicine, and the sciences. Because there's an end result that really needs that. And I just have to say that I feel motivated to show that to everybody. That there's one solid, real reason why we're doing any of this, of building technologies, is because the end of the earth is on the calendar. It's the ultimate goal and the ultimate challenge for all of us engineers.
So, the theory suggests that evolution is time sensitive with an urgent need to spread beyond Earth. So, what happens if we as humans do not meet this challenge as a species? So, is there a threat of us going extinct?
Earth looks promising, is all I have to say. Yeah, there's a time limit because if there wasn't, then we wouldn't become motivated to perform. So we're enforced. We're forced to build these technologies. Um, your question is if we don't make it, then we perish with the earth like all the other animals that we leave behind. We can't take the giraffe with us. We can't take the bumblebee with us. I wish we could. It's kind of like a Noah's Ark, an attempt, where you take two of every animal with you into space and you venture off and you look for another planet, perhaps. That's how you could do it. But I'm a, you know, I don't want to get away from the original question. If we basically, if we don't technologically meet technical standards for evacuation, we're just going to, burn up with the rest of the earth. That for sure, we already are scheduled for incineration. But profoundly, yeah, we're already dead. So we need to get to work on the concept of being able to leave. And it's a broad picture. And the reason why it's important to see it this way is because you came here from parents that came here from parents and a lineage of millions of people behind you. When you look at that as a very important aspect of your existence today, and it is, but why is your life the only important perspective? Think of the millions of people beyond you, if you have kids or not. Uh, millions and millions of people beyond you. That life will be an important day, just as important as yours. And that day that they are going to be facing is, well, it's getting a little hot. Time to leave Earth. See, so that life is just as important as yours, as the important lives of your lineage. It's all one fungus working together at this great concept of leaving the Earth or being capable of doing so. I hope that answers that question. But I want to add something. If we have aliens coming here and visiting, they don't want to crush our conscious growth that we've developed up till today, right? One day we'll be capable of making friends with that, but we're not. I agree. It's we need 1,000 years or something like that. But I think the reason why they're invading the way they are, and those little bits and pieces that we can see, and also ancient aliens, the same aliens, is because, like you mentioned, if we don't get off the Earth, we'll die with the Earth, and maybe they're monitoring our technological growth capabilities to see if we are going to enter a window where we're not going to be able to do that, and they would need to intervene to help us. And that would mean that they are galactic ecologists. And what else are you going to do? What else are we going to do as space-bearing beings? Twiddle our thumbs in a spaceship? That sounds pretty boring. So maybe our job is to also become galactic ecologists and go search for those very rare planets that may not make it in their biological time window.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, how far do you think we already are in the process of technology itself becoming a new life form or vehicle for consciousness?
Well, see, if you look at the past and evolution of technology itself, you can't evolve technologically without becoming more conscious and aware. And you can't become more conscious aware without the new technology doing that. So each one pushes itself to the next level. And a good example of that is the seatbelt in a car. In 1965, they implemented the seatbelt law for the first time. But look how many people had to die without seatbelts before they go, oh, duh, put a seatbelt around the waist. And then that wasn't, saving everybody because your head would hit the steering wheel. So then they made a strap. So see, you have to be more. You can't just come up with the airbag first in a car. Why didn't they, when they made the first car, why didn't they have the airbag right there in the steering wheel? Because you needed all the technologies like explosives and ceramics and fiber to really be able to contain an explosive like that. You couldn't do it in the 40s or 50s. So the seat belt grew, and then this, and then other technologies came together like a fungus. Technologies are all growing together, planetarily even, not just America. The whole world is contributing to these inventions to eventually make an airbag. So that's a good example of becoming more conscious, aware to build technology, so that technology can also make you become more conscious and aware. And unfortunately, it takes the deaths of lots of people to motivate those technological advances. And aeronautics is another good example. Every person that's died in an airplane crash has contributed to the technology to make flying safe today. And if it wasn't for those contributions, there wouldn't be motivation on the ground to stimulate the technological growth for that safety. So it's about a plane crash makes engineering more conscious and aware, and then so they develop more technology. But it only works so much. So when there's more tragedy, it stimulates more thinking, more conscious awareness, and then more technology. And it's going to do that all the way to the end of Earth.
So, you propose that constraints like death and planetary limits aren't really flaws, but drivers of progress. So, how can engineers and innovators apply this concept to their work?
Well, it takes a conceptual artist like myself to go there in the future and make these determinations. People who are worried about tensile strength and plastic molding, they're not they're not venturing off into the future to really make these determinations. They're doing their job here. Uh, for some reason, I've just been able, as a screenplay writer, a songwriter, I've been able to go there and determine, wow, what is the outcome of all this? And I was also ignited as a 9-year-old kid watching fireworks. I saw that fireworks would explode and it would look like a solar system, but only for like 2 seconds, and then would just vanish. And it bothered me that that's what we're in. Our solar system is something that's going to exist just for a split second. If you wanted to speed up, you know, our lives, I thought, well, what is this what is this for? And I just became very driven to everything that I learned about life, relationships, and successes, and great leaps in engineering. I just, what is all this for? And finally, it took all my life to really, to a point, till I was, 56 years old, to really realize, kind of almost accidentally. It was a ding. It went ding. Um, this is all one fungus doing something, and so then I started diving into research, and ever since, I all the research is still still proving it to be a reality in my head anyway. And I'm like, Uh, I can't put it down, and that's why we're here talking today. Is it's the most relevant thing that I've been able to put together, or anybody, about what's really going on. I hope I didn't get away from your question there.
Well, you nailed it. I think you actually talked much about the question, and I'm satisfied with that response. So tell us, Mark, if humanity were to succeed and reach what you call maximum conscious growth, what might that actually look or feel like?
I'll try and say that as simply as I can. So we have a universe that's producing something, and this research shows that it's producing conscious growth. First, it has to produce consciousness, which is a static state that's growing. So it's producing conscious growth. That's all it's doing. And it's a long explanation to show, physically and phonetically, how that is operating. So I won't get into it. But the product is conscious growth. Now, a terrestrial conscious ignition and growth, excuse me, like Earth, is only the incubation of its mere existence and practice growing. So once our planet makes the human, and it's capable of psychologically and mentally, uh, developing the technologies to save itself from the earth, it's kind of like a caterpillar that builds a cocoon, and then when it goes out, it flies away from the cocoon. So the earth is just basically our embryo for the birth of conscious growth. And here's a broad picture, a radical broad picture of really understanding this. Because we humans have a lot of pride and ego, and that's how we operate, and that's wonderful. But basically, anything as smart as us on Earth is still a premature consciousness. It's only when you've achieved the technology and the biology capable of leaving Earth forever that you've earned your maturity as a conscious growth. And that long explanation shows that it's all about growing to your maximum as a human culture. When we leave Earth, we are now born into the cosmos to grow to its maximum. And to understand what the maximum a consciousness can grow is that you have a big bang, something like that in the beginning, or inflation in the very beginning of the universe. And in the very end, all we know is that all the sun and all the stars and lights and quasars are all going to burn out. So we will be one day looking out of our spaceship window at complete darkness. Just there's nothing. There's nowhere to go or to come from. There's no more. You're just staring out. I'm not saying that's the end of conscious growth, but that's where I'm trying to put a gauge on where maximum conscious growth is. The process that's happening on Earth is actually maximum conscious growth. It's producing something that will grow to its maximum one day. That maximum product. And this is all.
Mm.
It's not a theory. It's something you can really tangibly understand, with evidence. In 3 trillion years from today, when all the stars have burned out and all the black holes have evaporated all their radiation, there's nothing to see. You can only imagine what that means. But I've kind of fabricated an event called the Unigalactic Conscious Harvest. Collect that for a minute. The Unigalactic Conscious Harvest. I mean, and this makes the best sense to me, because why would you grow something and then not harvest it in the end. So there's evidence that we're growing something from the universe. That product is conscious growth to its maximum for what? For an harvestation of some type. Can only be.
That is mind-boggling. Mark, looking at the current trajectory of artificial intelligence and space technology, what gives you the most hope about our future?
Um, the hope about our future is that where technology is today and what we've established as far as being able to suspend human life away from our planet is extremely promising. So, in my book, I have a little character called the Tin Can Man, and that's basically what the entire Earth's function is here to do: make one can and put one man in that tin can, and call it a Tin Can Man. So, if you can just get one human away from Earth in a tin can and survive, then all of humanity is successful. And what's great about today is that we already have a tin can. It's called the International Space Station, and we already have tin can men in there. So we're already successful. The thing is that they're not genetically capable of staying there longer than 1 year. So now the whole test is biological. How long can you make a human stay in a spaceship forever, or eventually forever? We're watching the technologies already grow and do that with Elon Musk making space travel capable of really colonizing the moon and Mars is really the obvious evidence that humanity has reached that level of being able to do what's necessary to do the biological engineering to make humans capable of living away from at least our Earth and on another celestial place like Mars or the moon. Once that's established for 1,000 years, then you're on the right track of being able to make the ultimate tin can man.
Amazing. Mark, tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your field? I mean, in the context of fungus theories and the future of consciousness.
About the word innovation, particular,
Yeah, I'd like to hear the meaning of the word innovation from you.
yeah. Um, the way to look at innovation is there's only three true inventions, just raw inventions. Um, one is polyester. The other one is the computer, but not the computer we have. It's the obelisk from China with the little wooden things, and the plow. Those three things are considered true inventions. Everything else is an innovation, and an innovation is basically the application of two inventions or previously established innovations. So I call this the "oh duh" process. Like, oh duh, put two and two together, and oh duh, you got this. You have this third element, this third innovation. And what you're watching humanity do is like from basements to garages to high-tech labs, you're watching it all work together to push innovation. It's almost like a fungal growth in communication. And the reason why the book's called Fungus Theory is because everything really is behaving like fungus. If you ever watched fungus grow in a Petri dish and exchange information, that's all what each human is doing. And another example of that is that mostly every hit song has come from the alleyway in modern recording for last 100 years. So complaints from streets and alleys end up being hit songs because that's the quickest voicing to freeing the mind through hearing songs. But that's a fungal process. That idea goes here, 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 and the ODub process just brings it to the surface, and and consciousness advances from that as well. So innovation is a fungal behavioral aspect, almost automatic.
That's That's a really interesting one there. I've heard many meanings of innovations from different people I've interviewed, and they all have like quite personalized meaning of innovations to them. And this one, I must say, is quite an interesting one, Mark. So, finally, tell us, where can listeners go to learn more about your work, your book, and dive deeper into the fungus theory?
Thanks. My website is marklchristensen.com, and you can find everything there. I'm just getting started this year, so it's not a lot out yet, but that's where you can find everything that I have built so far. And then I have a Facebook, Fungus Theory on Facebook, and Instagram, and all that stuff. But you can always go to Amazon and buy the book if you'd like. But there's Amazon. Fungus Theory of Conscious Growth is on Amazon. And I'm preparing my next book called Cosmonosis. Cosmonosis is
Hmm. Hmm.
basically the engine of all of this, the one single pre-cosmic intent that builds a living, self-aware mind. And that's the whole concept. It's a really simple concept. First thought of fungus theory, uh, I would tell myself it's not that simple. Look, there's religion, there's Jesus, there's all this stuff going on. How can it be as simple as everything's just one fungus with making
Wow.
a spore?
Uh,
Everything's just one fungus making a spore. And you and I are the spore, but we're not capable of really living in space forever. So you and I are really technically considered proto-spores. You want to learn more? Go
Great,
to my
great. That is indeed a wonderful one. It's been a really interesting conversation with you. I mean, you had my attention for the whole time about this whole fungus theory, and I must say I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Mark.
it's been fantastic to let it out. So I thank you very much for letting me do that. It's been wonderful to be here.